Good morning, guys. Am I audible to all of you and also my screen is visible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So, in our previous session, we have discussed what are the software required to make your environment ready so that we can start developing the ASP.NET Core web applications, right? And I hope you guys have made your environment ready, whatever the software required, like Visual Studio, SQL Server, then SSMS, Visual Studio Code, .NET SDK, whatever required, you have installed, and I hope you guys are ready to start developing your .NET Core application. So today, let us start how to develop ASP.NET Core web application using Visual Studio 2022 and using the .NET framework, right? Or you can say using .NET 6. So first of all, we need to open Visual Studio. So in the search bar, you just need to type Visual Studio, right? Once you type Visual Studio, right, then it will give you the list of options, right? Whatever installed on your machine. So you can say Visual Studio 2022, Visual Studio 2017, and you can also see this Visual Studio installer, right? So just click on this Visual Studio. You have two options. You can open this, run as an administrator, or you can directly run. As I have logged in into my machine and I am the admin, so this run as administrator is not required. Even though some of the time you need to run the application using administrator mode, for that purpose you need to use, but not required. Just click on this Visual Studio option, right? So once you click, then this window will come. This Visual Studio 2022 window will come. So you can see this is the left hand side and this is the right hand side. In the left hand side, whatever application you developed recently, right? Yesterday, today, last week, this month, old, right? Everything it is going to show here, right? And in the right hand side, you can see there is an option called create a repository, open a project or solution, open a local folder, and create a new project. So here, what option you need to choose as we are going to create a new application. So we have to click on this create a new project option. So once you click on this create a new project option, then you can see in the left hand side, it will give me the list of option, what kind of a project I have created recently and what kind of project I have created recently. Those templates are going to be shown here. If you are opening for the first time, then you might not get this template because you have not created any project. Second, in the right hand side, you can see there are three options. Or you can see by default this C sharp is selected, all language, right? All platform, and here you can see all project types. So basically what it means using ASP.NET Core, using Visual Studio, right? What are all different kind of projects you can develop? That list of a project template it is going to show you. So once you scroll down, you can see many different kind of project templates are there using which you can create the applications. But we are not interested for all. So what we are interested, we are interested for C sharp. We are interested, we are going to develop this application on Windows or let all platform. And here we are interested for web application. See, once I select this option, right, the number of project template is ready. So we will discuss what are all these project templates after some time, right? But what we are, I'm trying to explain you is, so our main intention is to learn ASP.NET Core Web API. So the project template, what you can see here, ASP.NET Core Web API. We will learn Model View Controller, right? These are the two project templates which we basically going to be used in our upcoming session, right? But before that, what I just want to make you sure that what are by default they are provided, how you can make one project into ASP.NET Core Web API, how you will make one empty project, right? How you will develop the project from scratch, and how you can make that project to be support the model view controller approach, right? So basically, we are going to learn from the scratch. From the scratch means from zero. I don't want to use the built-in things which are going to be provided to make the application to make the application as a MVC application. So rather than what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the empty template, right? So you can see there is an option called ASP.NET Core Empty. So using this template, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add everything manually so that you will understand what is the role and what is the important of each component. So here you can see I'm going to use this ASP.NET Core empty template, what exactly this template is saying. An empty project template is for creating an ASP.NET Core application. This template doesn't have any content on it, right? By default, you will not find any content. So by default, you can say that it is a MVC application, it is a web application, it is a Razor Pages application. No, it's not like that. So you can make that application as MVC application. You can make that application as Razor Pages application. You can make that application as a web API application, right? How we will make that we will see in practically, right? So basically, I'm going to use this empty project template. So by default, it will not give you anything. Everything we are going to do manually so that we will get a better idea what are all the components, how they are going to be created, how they are going to be added, how they are going to be modified, what is the role and responsibility of each component, right? Everything we are going to be learn step by step. So instead of selecting this web API and this model view controller template, I'm starting with this OSP.NET Core empty project template. So once you select this project template, then click on the next button. So basically, once you click on the next button, let me show you I'm going to give the project name, because this project name is not mandatory, but I'm copy pasting this name because for the simplicity, because I have written some code, I will simply copy paste those code, right? So, but guys, I'm providing the project name as fast core web application, but it is not mandatory. Whatever name you want to give to your project, you can give. I'm giving the name as a fast core application. Any suitable name as per your ways you can give, but the name should be a meaningful, right? It should not be give anything like, right? So it should be a meaningful name. Second option is that it is showing that where you want to create the project. So I'm basically going to create my all .NET Core projects inside this D colon slash projects folder. And this fast core web application, you can see whatever the name I have provided, that name is going to be the solution name. So what is the solution? The solution is nothing but it is a collection of projects, right? In .NET Core or in in Visual Studio, you can also say one solution can contain many different kind of projects, right? So by default, every project belongs to a solution, and a solution can contain more than one project. So in this case, if I'm clicking on this fast core web application, then what will happen? Now, in this case, the project name is going to be fast core web application, and the solution name is also going to be fast core web application. If you want, you can also give a different name like this, right? So, but that is also possible. So basically, I'm not doing that. Whatever I'm doing, I'm going with the same name and same project name and same solution name, right? So once you provide this, if you want to place a solution and project on the same directory, you have to click. So once you click this one, you can say this is disabled. This is disabled means whatever the project name, that is going to be the solution name. But once you uncheck this, you can give a different name. That is possible, right? But for web application, you can give a different name. So once you provide the project name, the location where you want to create the project, the solution name, or within that solution, this project is going to be created. Then what you need to do, you just need to click the next button. Once you click the next button, it will open this additional information window. So additional information window means for this ASP.NET Core empty project template, right? You can say this ASP.NET Core empty template, and this empty template, right? Basically, it is saying that it is going to be used C# language. It can run and host on Linux, Mac, Windows operating system. You can make this application as a cloud. You can make this as a service, and you can make this as a web application, right? So basically, here we need to select or here we need to provide some additional information. So what are the additional information? So here you can see the project framework, the target framework. So which target framework, which framework you want to use to develop this application? I want to use .NET 6.0, right? You have to use it, all right? You can see other are out of support, but even though they are out of support, you can still use them and develop your application. But I don't want to use them. I want to use .NET 6.0. So then once you select this .NET 6.0, you can see there are other checkboxes also available. So configure for HTTPS, what we mean by this? See, by default, in earlier applications, we are having, we have to write a required HTTPS attribute, right? If you want to allow that automatic redirection, right? That whenever the user sends the request using HTTP, we want to transfer that to HTTPS. For that purpose, we need to enable HTTPS, we need to create a certificate, SSL certificate, we need to load the certificates, many things we need to do manually. But this is not a case with ASP.NET Core. So if you check this checkbox, right, then you can access your application URL using HTTPS protocol. Even though it is also possible, so that doesn't mean if you check this one, you can access using HTTP protocol. You can still access using HTTP protocol, but in once you check this, you can access using both the protocol. Now, if you take Mount for what is saying, configure HTTPS, right? For accessing your application using HTTPS protocol, whatever configuration is required, that is going to be done internally by Visual Studio, right? So if you want to access, you can check this checkbox. If you don't want, you can uncheck this one. But I'm going to access my application. I'm going to show you how it is accessing, whatever the configuration it is doing, right? Everything. So I'm going to check this checkbox. Currently, I'm not going to use Docker, right? So once you start discussing Docker, at that time I will explain and I will check this one. So see, once I unchecked this one, this checkbox is not checked. You can see Docker OS is not enabled. But once I checked this one, you can see Docker enabled. So now it is showing that this application you want to use Docker operating system Linux, or you want to use Windows operating system, right? But currently I'm not going to use. Do not use top level statement means what? Now, by default, whenever you check this checkbox, right, the main method is going to be created one with the program class name. If you unchecked this one, then what will happen? Now, one code block is going to be generated for your application, right? And that code block is not going to contain any using statement, using namespace declaration, using class declaration, using method declaration, right? It is going to contain only the statement, and that statement is going to be the entry point to your application, right? If you use this one, right, as unchecked, then you will not find the program class name and main method, right? But if you checked this one, then you will see the program class main method, and within the main method, the entry point code is there. But if you uncheck, then only the entry point code will be there, but the main method and program class will not be there. I will show you both options. Let's start with by checking this checkbox, right? So once you check this checkbox, and then just click on the create button. So once you click on this create button, then you will see that it is going to create the project ASP.NET Core Web Application with the minimum things, right? As we discussed, the biggest advantages of ASP.NET Core Web Application is only minimum thing it is going to provide. As you progress, right, as you require, whatever things is necessary, that you can download from NuGet or that you can add manually, and that is the biggest advantages of using ASP.NET Core. Now, once you create the project, you can see only five folders are there, or five folders and files are there. So dependency folder is there. So what is dependency? Any package you want to install, that is going to be installed inside this, right? In the properties, there is a launch settings. Launch setting means for the development server, whatever settings you need to do, you can use. So guys, don't worry. What is this dependency? How we are going to add packages? How it is going to be visible? How you can remove the package, how we are going to update the package, everything we are going to discuss practically, right? Launch setting start JSON, this is also we are going to discuss in detail, right? App setting start JSON and app setting start development dot JSON. So what is the difference between them, right? I'm also going to discuss this thing. And this is the program class, as we mentioned. This program class, right, you can see is created with the class name and with the method name called main. And you can see this main method contain 4 lines of port, right? But if you unchecked that top level statement checkbox, then you will not find this namespace declaration, class declaration, and method declaration. This thing you will not find. You will only get this 4 line of a code, right? So, any question how to create .NET Core empty web application, guys? I will explain all these things, how to run, what are all these things. But for now, if someone asks you how to create a ASP.NET Core web application, right, with a empty project template, any question? There should not be any confusion, right? We just created the application.
So this is a console application.
No, no, it's not a console application. This is a web application. So I have not used that console application template. I have used web application template. Now
Okay.
you guys might be have some questions, some doubts, sir. Why main method is there as we are not creating the console application? Why main method is there? Why that program class? How it behave like a web application? Everything we are going to discuss step by step, right? But now I'm just asking any doubt related how to create the web application. And I think there should not be. So we are just creating the project, right? Why should we have any question or doubt? Right? So once you develop the application, then you need to run the application. For running the application, we have many options, right? If you simply press F5, right? Uh, if you simply run Control F5, right, then your application is going to be built and run, right? So I'm running the application. You can see the browser will open, and in the browser, it is going to display hello world. So this hello world message you can see. So by pressing Control F5, right, then the other option is also available, right? Then the other option, what is? Simply press F5, right? So can anybody tell me what is the difference between running the application using F5 and Control F5? You guys are
Control
working
F5,
together.
Control F5 build and then it runs, I think. And
And what
F5
is F5? F5? It will not build, it will directly run the application.
It is run, but without debugging.
Exactly. So if you use F5, then it will run the application in debug mode. But if you use Control F5, then it is going to be in without debugging mode. Means what? See, whenever we are running the application, we are putting the debugger point and we start debugging line by line. Right? If you want to run your application with debugging mode, then you have to use F5. And without debugging mode means you need to run the application using a Control plus F5. Right? So now apart from this option, right, we have also other options, right? You can see here, this is nothing called, guys, a launch profile, right? Launch profile means how you want to launch your application, that profile editing. You can see we have two options here. One is IIS Express, another one is Fastcore Web Application. So guys, remember, if I'm using Fastcore Web Application, then it is going to use the Castrel web server. If I'm using this IIS Express, then it is going to use the IIS web server, right? So now I'm running the application using IIS. So you have to select the IIS launch profile, and you can see this is the application, and this is the output. Guys, remember the port number. See, port number is 44315, and it is HTTPS, right? Why it is accessing HTTPS? Because if you remember, while creating the application, we have enabled the HTTPS protocol, right? And now I'm going to run the application and using the fast core web application. So when I use fast core web application, in that case, it is going to use what server? It is going to use a Kestrel server, and you can see it is having a different port number. So you are quite well as having question. Sir, what is Kestrel web server? We'll discuss them. There is something called in-process hosting, out-of-process hosting, Kestrel web server, right? How the in-process hosting is work, what is the architecture of in-process hosting, what is out-of-process hosting, what is the architecture, how custom web server work, how IaaS web server work, right? Well, how the .NET Core application is going to be executed by the server, and everything we are going to discuss. But just now, you just remember that you can run the application in many different ways using F5, using Control F5, and as well as using the Visual Studio designer window, right? From the designer window, you can select the launch profile and then just click on the button, right? That will start running the application, right? So this is how you need to run. See here, it will run the application using IIS Express, and this button means start without debugging. See, so whenever I move the mouse pointer over here, it is saying start without debugging. You can click on this button to start the application without debugging, or you can press Control F5. And here you can see it is simply saying that once you click on this, in this case, it is going to run the application with debugging mode, right? So this is how you need to run the application.
So,
Now,
create
yes.
builder, what it does here, create builder function of the web application.
So I'm going to explain this thing in detail. Why I'm just saying how to create the application, how to run the application. What exactly the code written inside the main method, I'm not yet explained, right? I'm going to definitely explain what is this create builder method, what is this builder, what is this build method, what is this map get, what is this run method. Everything I'm going to explain in detail. Right. So
Okay.
whatever I'm explaining, any question related to how to develop the application, how to run the application, if you have doubt, then you can ask me, what is this IIS Express launch profile? What is this is, right? All these things I'm going to explain in detail. So we need to go step by step, right? I'm not going to explain anything, right, random. I'm following one pattern so that you will understand everything. Right? This is only for the good for you people. Right. So you can see whenever we run the application, we are getting something called hello world, right? If you run the application, then you will get some message called hello world. And from where this hello world message is coming? This message is coming from this hello world. Now, if you change this message now, let me change this one. Hello .NET Core, right? Instead of hello world, I'm changing this to .NET Core. So this message, whatever you are seeing in the screen, the message is coming from this map get method, right? Now whatever changes we have done, that changes we are getting in the screen. So this message is coming, right, from this hello world, and whatever changes you can do, right? Now, while developing the ASP.NET Core application, right, we have many project templates for developing the web application, right? For example, now if you create a new application, let me select this one web, right? So you can see ASP.NET Core Web app. So what is the use of this ASP.NET Core Web? Basically, if you want to develop Razor Pages application, then you need to use this template. Blazor application you want to develop, Blazor server app, you have to use this template. RESTful services you want to develop, ASP.NET Core Web API RESTful services, you have to use ASP.NET Core Web API template. Even though it is basically used to develop RESTful services, but you can also use MVC model view controller approach, because if you remember, we have discussed one of the biggest advantages of ASP.NET Core controller is that it supports both MVC and Web API, right? That means what? The same controller can return a view, the same controller can act as a RESTful service. So that means even though if you are using ASP.NET Core Web API, that doesn't mean you can't develop a model view controller approach application. You can also develop. This is the MVC, sorry, this is the empty template, ASP.NET Core empty template. This project template is basically used to create an empty application, right? No model, no view, no controller, no www root folder, nothing is there. And this is what you can see here. So this is the empty project template. There is no model folder, no view folder, no controller folder, no www root folder, nothing is there. Only basic things is there. One program file is there, and this app setting dependency property. These are the required file to run your .NET Core application. These things are only available, right? Then model view controller approach. This basically used to develop, right? So this model view controller. Uh, this model view controller project template is basically used to develop MVC based applications, but that doesn't mean you can't create a RESTful services. Using this template also, you can develop RESTful services. This is Blazor server app where the code is going to be run on the server side, and this is WebAssembly app. This is, in this case, the application code is going to be run on the client side. And like this, you can develop Razor class library similar to our .NET Core class standard class library project, right? Where the code is going to be shared by multiple different projects. You can use Razor class library. You can develop a ASP.NET Core application and introduce what I can see integrating with Angular, ASP.NET Core application integrating with React.js, right? So you can also develop a Unity text project, right? Web driver test for edge server, right? So I don't know what exactly this one. So basically, you can develop different types of a project, right? In this case, I will start with a ASP.NET Core empty project template. I will use ASP.NET MVC model view controller template. I will use ASP.NET Core Web API template. And at the end, I will show you how you can use this ASP.NET Core with the Angular, right? And some point of time, I'm also going to use this Razor class library project because sometimes we need to use commonly used classes, and for that purpose, it is better to create them as a separate class library project. So these are the project templates that you will generally find in your .NET Core application if you want to develop a project, right? So
Library here is just to create the library DLL.
yes, the library means the same library what you create in your .NET applications,
Okay, so we can
right?
create DLL and then we can use it with any other project.
Exactly, that is what I'm saying. That you can create the commonly used classes as part of the class library project, and you can use them anywhere you want, right? So
Yes.
now let us any question guys related to this one, because we just created the project, we just run the project, and we just discuss what are the different project templates. I have not discussed any code part. I am going to definitely explain in today's session, but we need to go step by step.
Sir, one question. I have created an application of the same thing, empty template, but I'm not getting that message hello world. It is asking me to install some certificates. Is there anything else required to run that program?
No, there is no certificate is required. So what version of .NET you are using? Visual Studio 2022.
Oh yeah, 2022.
I don't think any certificate is required. So it's a simple application. Just restart and check.
Sir,
Certification is not.
sir, I think it's SSL certificate when we are running it for the first time.
No, SSL certificate. See, if you are getting that issue, then just try using the SPTP version. Just remove that SSL, right? SSL port is this one, right? If you are using IIS Express, for IIS Express, you can directly also access without using SSL, right? This is the HTTP protocol like this. And for SSL, you have to use this port number. For example, right? So if I'm going to run this application using IIS Express, then I can access the application using this, as well as I can access by using this one, right? So let me run this. So this is the port number, right? Now what I'm doing, but as I'm not sure whether it is going to work or not, because by default it will redirect to the, right? This is the port number. See, you can access using HTTPS as well as using HTTP. If you are having SSL is a problem, you can access using the without using HTTPS. Clear?
I mean, like in project level, with HTTP,
See,
without HTTP, will there be any difference?
yes, definitely there will be difference now. So in the whenever you host your application into the actual production server, right? You should host using SSL certificate. Otherwise, what is the problem? Can anybody tell me what is the difference accessing the website using HTTP and HTTPS?
HTTP is, I think, secure connection.
No, that definitely S stands for secure. But what is the advantages? If I'm accessing the website
Security,
using HTTP,
if you use the SSL like HTTPS, so we are providing the extra security there. So
exactly,
there,
exactly. The extra security is there. The text, whatever you are sending, that
yeah,
is going to be encrypted, right? But without
yeah, sir.
HTTPS, it is going to be in plain text, right? So hacker can see and can hack your data. But HTTPS means it is going to provide extra layer of security. And
Sir,
definitely, whenever you going for production server, you should try to use HTTPS.
yeah, sir, I have one question. So in real life, real time, like how you can decide which template you need to use if we are going to develop any project?
So definitely. So in real time, you know, right, what kind of a project you are going to develop. You are
Mhm.
developing a web application, you are developing web services, or anything else. If you are developing web application, then definitely you need to choose model view controller approach. If you are developing web services or RESTful services, then you need to decide that web API template.
So, sir, if I want to develop any scheduler like project, so how which template we need to use?
So scheduler means this is a, you just need to use some class console application. For that purpose, this web template is not required. And that is what I'm saying. That is a console application only.
Okay.
So basically, you need to create some kind of scheduler, or you can say job, right? Which is going to run periodically, or which every 30 minutes or every 1 hour, or so on some particular time, right? Backend services. So for that purpose, you do not need any kind of web application. Only console application. One console application is more than enough, right?
So, sir, worker like one template worker is there. So, do you know why we're using worker?
So what template?
Worker. Can you search in
Worker
worker?
process.
Yes, worker service.
So this is basically it is going to be console application only, na?
Okay.
Right? So background service, yes, it is going to be console application only, right? So basically, I never used this one, right? So I can't say anything. What is this worker service? Background service means it is something like console application. What I assume, right? Which is going to be run in the background to execute some kind of status update activity, right? So basically, in our project, right, we are using these services to update the status. Right. Suppose some payment get pending, then in that case we are using this kind of services, right, which will automatically run some time interval, and they will go to the payment gateway, they will get the updated status and update the data in the database, right?
So, sir,
So
suppose someone suggested me to use like I'm new to .NET Core. So, if some
right. So
developer
see,
suggest,
basically I'm not saying this is something difficult, right? So I
no,
never
no.
worked on this worker service. If you Google it, then you will get more information.
Okay, so that's what my question, sir. So someone suggested me, so how we can dig like how we can use this, like what the purpose of using. So through Google only we
See,
can get like all the
See,
information.
thing
Yeah,
is like this, right? So definitely
sir.
if you are working with Visual Studio 2022, there are 50 projects, more than 100 templates. So no one can give you, let me select all. So nobody
Mhm,
can give you that all platform and all language, right? There are more than
mhm.
100 project templates. So one person cannot explain, or what I can say, teach everything, right? So some specific knowledge, having some specific good. I'm having very good experience on MVC and web kind of applications, right? So I'm going to this
Okay.
MVC and web. So something new that we need to Google it. We
So
cannot
sir,
depend every.
template
Yes,
means like it depends upon the project template, like what they're using from the earlier.
exactly.
Okay.
That is what I'm
Okay.
saying now. Project, depending upon the project type, you need to choose the template so that whatever things are required, that is going to be given by the framework,
Okay. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Sir,
right?
in real time, they will give the task, right? So Oh, the task where we have to find it. So this is the task and we have to work on that. So how do we know that?
How do you know that means what? So in real time, you guys, you're only going to decide, so this is your web application. We have to create this is the page, right? I don't know. I think this is going to be a question. How we'll decide in real time? Because see, in real time, so before moving forward, you should know what is the difference between a web application and a web service, a RESTful service. Can you please explain me what is the difference between a web application and a RESTful service?
Oh, I don't know, sir.
Right. So if you don't know, then currently I can't explain this thing, how you will decide. Because once you know what is exactly a web application, what is exactly a RESTful service, right? Then you will decide, so yeah, this is the requirement. And for this requirement, I need to go for a web application. And this is the requirement for this, I'm going to develop a RESTful service, right? Currently, I have not even touched what is web application, what is RESTful services. Then how I'm going to explain this thing. So first of all, we need to understand what is web application. We need to understand what is RESTful services, right? Once you understand these two things, then this is not going to be a question for you anymore, right? But you have to wait. So what is RESTful services? If you do not know, then I can't explain that how you will decide. First of all, we need to understand, yeah, this is the RESTful service. The purpose of RESTful service is this. This is a web application. The purpose of a web application is this. Then only you can decide. Until and unless you do not know what is a web application, what is RESTful services, you can't understand or you can't decide whether you need to go for web application and whether you need to go for RESTful services. Clear? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Right. So you have to understand first what is web application and what is RESTful service. Even though I'm giving you this is a task, right? So you just Google it and just try to learn what is a web application and what is a RESTful service, right? Web application means using your browser, you are accessing one UI will come. In that UI you are going to interact, right? RESTful services means this is a backend service. Using browser you can't access the RESTful even though you are accessing the get services, but for that purpose you need to use another application, right? So we are going to discuss this thing in detail. Guys, please mute yourself.
5 minutes.
This nonsense, right? So any question from anyone? Right. So we have discussed what is and how to create the ASP.NET Core empty web application, right? Next, we need to understand some of the uh, files which are generated by the .NET framework, right? Some of the code are written by the .NET framework. We need to understand. So let us start with the ASP.NET Core project file, right? If you have worked with the previous versions of ASP.NET framework, like ASP.NET MVC, ASP.NET Web page, then you might be know that there will be project file, right? Uh, Created by Visual Studio for us, right? If you are using C# as the program language, then that project file is going to be CSproj. Similarly, if you are using VB as the programming language, then the project file is going to be vb.proj. For example, suppose I'm using Visual Studio 2017 and I'm going to develop one web application, right? So using the ASP.NET Core template and using the MVC framework, right? So this is going to be a web application. So as in .NET framework, whenever we create a application, right? In that case, the Visual Studio is going to create the project file for us. In this case, I'm using C# as the programming language. So if you go to the file folder in Explorer, then definitely you will see one cs.proj file. CA stand for C# and this proj stand for project file. This is nothing but your project file. So this is you will find in our earlier framework, right? .NET framework. What with the ASP.NET Core, the format and the content of the project file has been changed significantly. But in .NET Core project file is going to be there. but the content and format is going to be different. So what is the difference? What are the changes they have made to the project file? Let us start discussing. First of all, you need to create the application, which we have already created, right? So once you create the application, then we need to understand. See, in our previous version of the project file, if you want to edit, then what you need to do? You need to unload the project like this, right? So you can see there is an option called unload. Where is that unload project? Once you unload the project, then you need to go to the uh, solution explorer, right? And then you need to open this project file in edit mode, right? So you need to open this in the notepad, and then you need to do the changes here, whatever changes. And once you made the changes into the project file, then you need to save the changes. And once you save the changes, then you need to load the project by right clicking and load the project. So this is how we are updating the project file in our earlier framework, right? But with .NET Core, this option is no more required. So how you are going to update the project file? Now you do not need to load and unload the project. Project loading, unloading is no longer required in .NET Core. What you need to do? Just right click, right? Right click on the project, and there is an option called edit project file. Right click on the project, and this you will find the edit project file. This is the project file. You can see right click, and there is an option called edit project file. So directly you do not need to what I can say, unload the project, update the project file, and load the project. This is not required with .NET Core, right? So in this project file you can see three sections. Sorry, not three sections. Three things are by default provided by .NET Core. Many things are going to be added. What those are we are going to discuss one by one. So first of all, we need to understand what is this target framework, what is this nullable, and what is this implicit using. So as you can mention, as you can understand, this .NET 6.0, this is nothing but the target framework moniker. So what is this target framework moniker? Now this .NET 6.0 is nothing but the moniker for .NET 6, right? So what is the framework? So while we are creating the application, what is the .NET framework we have used? We have used .NET 6.0. So this target framework moniker or this target framework element will give you the information what is the framework targeting the application. So this application or this framework project targeting .NET 6.0. Right, so there is nothing to explain more because this is simply specifying what is the .NET version you are using in this application or in this project. What is this nullable enable, right? So this is a new feature, this nullable enable and implicit using. This is a new feature which is introduced in .NET Core, right? So if you are using C# 9 or more above 9 or in .NET Core, these are new features. So what is the use of a nullable enable? Right. So for example, if I go to this, right? So currently I'm creating one string variable. I'm creating a string str and I'm storing some null, right? And then whatever I'm writing some console dot statement. I'm writing str dot len, right? So here you can see I'm getting some warning. So what warning it is giving me here? str may be null here. That means the compiler implicitly checking whether this object is null or not. If this object is null, then it is going to give you a warning that you might get runtime null reference exception. Please be careful. This warning you are getting here only because you are enabling the nullable, right? If this is enabled, then only you will get this warning. And here also it is saying you are storing a null variable, you are storing a value null on a variable which you have not declared nullable type. So you want to store null, then you have to declare this variable as nullable type. See, once I put a question mark, this error is gone. So this is nothing but because of this nullable type, right? Now what I'm saying, I'm getting this two warning. Now, what are the possible value of this nullable element is enable and disable. So once I make this as a disable, then you will see whatever warning we are getting earlier, we will not get anymore, right? So this project is running more, okay, right? So we are not getting the warning anymore. Why we are not getting? Because currently the compiler will not going to check the nullability. The compiler is not going to check the nullability. The compiler will only check the nullability when you enable this one, right? So once you enable and come to here again you will see the compiler is going to give you the warning. See, we are getting the warning, but it is not going to give you the warning again and again. It is giving you the warning that you might be accidentally forget to initialize this variable, right? If you initialize this variable with some data, right, then you will not get that warning because compiler know that this variable is initialized. It is not null now. So he will not give you any warning, right? But if you declare this as a nullable type, then it will give you warning. And it is not going to give you warning again and again, right? If you are doing the mistake, then we will warn you one time. But if you are doing the same mistake again and again, we are not giving you warning. It is your responsibility. And the same thing compiler will also going to do here. See, I'm accessing the same length property once more, but second time it is not giving me the warning because first time you might be doing this accidentally. So compiler giving you the warning. But second time, if you are doing means it is not accidentally, you are doing it intentionally. Intentionally means no more warning, right? So what is the advantages of using this nullable property means it will reduce the null time exception, right? So null reference exception, which you may get at runtime. So you will get only this feature if you enable this one. Clear?
Here we enable as an level. Then in the code there should not we should not require to put the question mark.
No, see, you have to put the question mark, otherwise you will get the runtime exception. Here,
Here
what this warning is saying that you might get null reference exception while you run the application. Please be careful. First of all, fix this issue. You should not have any warning while you are developing the code. You are getting this warning because there is a chance you will get null reference exception at runtime. So you have to fix this one, right?
in the
But if you disable this one, then you will not get this warning, and right, you will not get this warning. But you will get runtime exception whether you enable or disable. You will get runtime exception. Only difference, if you enable, then you will get warning. And once you get, see, in this case, you are not getting warning. So why you are thinking about whether this variable is null or not? So you will proceed, you will start writing and you will start developing, compiling and running your application, right? You will not think about whether this variable is null or not null. But if it is giving you some warning means you need to think about it, whether I'm doing any kind of a mistake or not. So if I'm doing any mistake, then what mistake it is. So it is, if you move your mouse pointer here, it is in str may be null here. If str is null, on a null object, if I am accessing some property or method, then what is going to be happen? You know that is if on a null reference object, if I'm accessing any member, right, any property, any method, right, anything, then we will get null reference exception. That warning he is giving. You have to take the responsibility to fix that warning before moving forward. Clear? Right? Clear, guys? What is the use of this nullable element?
So what happens if you add a question mark after string?
Right, that is what he's saying now. If you add a question mark, then what will happen? Now he is saying that intentionally you are creating this variable as a nullable type variable. So as you are going to store null, so intentionally you are storing null. So you have to declare this variable as a nullable type. For example, integer I. So integer I, by default I am storing 1, 10, whatever, that is fine, right? So I can store this. So here we are getting this warning because we are not using that variable, right? So I'm using that variable, no more warning, right? But now, if I'm going to store null, then is it going to accept by default? It will not accept. So what you need to do, you have to make this variable as a nullable type. Once you make this variable as nullable type, means that variable is going to hold the null value, and intentionally you are doing this by using the question mark. And same thing is also here. See, earlier we are acquainted that string is the default value for string is null. That is fine, but it is a variable, and you are storing null means explicitly you have to tell that this variable is going to be nullable. And you can see automatically the Visual Studio showing me the intelligence to put a question mark here. And once I put, then that is going to be gone. But here you will get the warning again. Why? Because he is saying that the string variable is maybe null, so you might get a null reference exception. Please take care. So how you can take care? You can put a question mark here, right? Or you can initialize this variable with some value to avoid this null reference exception. Clear?
Yes.
Uh, when we make a label here, so in the script we have to enable as a label the script file.
Right. See, if you are making this question mark, that is fine. Why? Because nullable type is enable. But this doesn't make any sense. If you enable or disable, right? That is up to you. If you disable this, then it is saying that nullable checking is not there. You can use, and if you want to use, you can use. If you don't want to use, you can't use. In that case, you will not get any what I can say this warning, right? So you will get some kind of a runtime exception. No more warning while you are accessing the what I can say the property on a null object.
So when we disable, then there is no warning, and when we enable, then in that case there is
Yes.
no warning.
When you enable and whenever you are accessing any property using the null reference object for the first time, you will get the warning. If you disable, then there is no warning. Here you can see I'm not getting any warning, right? Even though if you remove this question mark here also, you will not get any warning, but you will get runtime exception, right? But once you enable, then you will get the warning. If you are accessing some property on a null reference object, then you will get the warning. Here you will get the warning, but only one time. If you are accessing for the second time, then you will not give you the warning because you are doing it intentionally. This is first time accidentally, second time onwards intentionally. Clear, guys?
So when we create the string like string without label, string str equal to .NETCore. So in that case, this will work. str.length will work.
I'm not getting your question.
When we declare the variable str, we are not making nullable. Str equal to .NETCore. Some string we are writing here. So in that case, this statement will work.
Obviously, it is going to work and it will not give you any warning because this str variable is no longer null. As it is not null, you can access the property. There is no more warning. Okay. So the next element in this property group is implicitly using. So what is the use of implicitly using means? Now, if you see whenever, okay, let me give you one example using Visual Studio 2017, right? So whenever I'm creating a application, any project, let me give you a console application using .NET Framework, right? So in this case, right, by default, you will see these are the namespaces which are included. And whenever you create any kind of classes, right, by default, these namespaces are implemented. But coming to our .NET Core application, any namespaces is there, but still we are able to access this console class, but still we are going to able to create the a list of properties like this, right? So this is a possible everything, right? Why I'm able to access this generic collection namespace, how I'm able to access this system namespaces, everything is possible. Why it is possible? Without, but if you check the class, there is no namespace declaration statement is there like this. I have not used any using declaration inside my .NET Core application, but still it is working. How it is working? Because of this implicitly using. So as you enable this implicitly using, right? So whatever the default namespaces, they are going to be available throughout your application, right? Now, instead of enable, make this as a disable. So once you make this as a disable, then what will happen, right? You will see, you will get the compilation error. What compilation error? This list class namespace is not available. Console class namespace is not available. This web application builder class namespace is not available, right? So in that case, what you need to do, whatever the namespaces, right, you have to implicitly, you have to explicitly, you need to declare here, right? But if you do not want to explicitly declare the commonly used namespaces, right, then you have to enable this in your project. Clear? Once you enable, means this the compilation error, right? This error, whatever you are getting earlier, will be gone. Clear, guys? What is the use of this element implicitly using?
So whatever namespaces are required, it will automatically take it
No,
in
not it will automatically. Whatever required, right? Commonly used namespaces, those are going to be what I can say provided. Any new namespaces that you need to provide, even though, right, there is also another option. Another option means we are having see, currently you do not have that template here. There is a class file, right? If you are working with the MVC and OAP application, one views folder is going to be created. Inside the views folder, there is a file is going to be created as view imports, right? Within that file, you can specify any commonly used namespaces, right? In this case, whatever required for .NET Core application, those namespaces, minimum, whatever required, those are going to be implicitly provided. But any additional explicitly namespaces that you need to write using the using statement only, right? Even though if you do not want that, there is another option called view import. Inside that file, you can also import that. That is what we are going to discuss in detail, right? What is view import, right? What is view start? What is layout pages, what is view. So everything we are going to discuss. But for now, whatever namespaces you can see in this example, see this is a console application, and this the console application, right, framework thing that these 5 are the commonly used namespaces. So he provided this 5 namespaces automatically so that you can start developing the application. Similarly, for the .NET Core application, whatever the namespaces require, right, to start developing the .NET Core application, those namespaces are only implicitly provided by the framework. Not all. You have to remember this thing. Clear, guys?
only common namespaces which are required to run the application is provided by the .NET Core, and when we are using some namespaces as of our as per our requirement, then we have to include that explicitly.
Exactly. Okay.
Sir, I have a
Yes.
question. Like,
Sure.
Miss, if you're using, for example, you have used link over there, how is the CLR or the runtime knowing that it should use system dot link in this particular program if you're not explicitly mentioning it? So is it
See. So you do not understand. So in this case, it is not explicitly using, but right, what those namespaces are available to this class file implicitly.
okay?
Right. So in this case, I'm not using this namespaces using the using statement, but those namespaces are automatically available to this class. Right. That is that responsibility will be taken care by the .NET Core framework only.
Okay, so it implicit. So there is a check that happens and it takes care of it implicitly.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
That
So those
makes, yeah.
namespaces are automatically available to this class if you enable this. Right.
Sir, like, is this case only with the inbuilt functions, or if we want to use any explicit libraries, DLLs?
Yeah, see, explicitly, that is what I'm saying now. Explicitly library also possible. How that is possible? Okay, so let me tell you why I'm not going to, as I mentioned, there is a few input, right? So let me create one ASP.NET Core MVC application, right? So this is one MVC template I'm using. I'm creating the project, right? So in that case, any additional namespaces you want to use throughout the application, then what you need to do, if you go to the views folder, there is a view import. So in this folder only, you need to include that namespace. So once you include that namespace within this CSS view imports.css file, then that namespace you can access throughout the application. Right? Any explicitly, right, which is not provided implicitly, you can use here and you can access from anywhere. Clear?
So if we include it here, we can use anywhere in the solution in the project, not only view in models, in controllers. Everywhere.
I'm saying throughout the application. Throughout the application means anywhere.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So
Even
now,
sir, even
yes.
here also,
if you go to the
Sorry.
if you go to the main application, here also usings are there. If you top left, there are two parentheses, right? Two parentheses. Top left, sir. Yes, just beside one. Just beside one. There. That click it, sir.
Yes.
All
These
this.
are the namespaces which are already implicitly included in this application, right? Clear, guys?
Yeah, so like it's like as and when if we include any keyword, the file related to that will be added to that using directory, I think.
So
Is that
what keyword you were talking about?
suppose if I want to make use of file thing, when I type file, the automatically file.io will be added to this usings.
So
Is
automatically not added, you have to add those things, right? Automatically how it will be added. So these are the things which are automatically available. Sometimes if that is not available, then you have to include them. Right? That we will see. Why you are in a hurry, I don't understand. So this is not end. We are going to add many things, many additional things. I will show you everything step by step. Right? So currently, whatever the namespace is required for developing, they are provided implicitly by the framework. And what are the namespaces if you want to, so they are providing implicitly, just click on this. Right? Next, what we are going to do, I'm going to discuss how to add packages using NuGet package manager, right? So basically, if you see, right? So basically, if you see, there is a dependency folder, and within that, let me close other things. Right? There is a dependency folder. Whenever we add any packages, right? That packages is going to be added inside this dependency folder. So to add a packages, we have multiple options. You can right click here, click on the manage packages. It will open the NuGet package manager window, right? The other option is that you can go to tools, NuGet package manager, and the NuGet packages for solution. This option is also available. So what you need to do, you just need to go to the browse tab, search for the NuGet package, whatever you want to install, right? I'm trying to install newtonsoft.json. Select the package and select the project. So in this case, you can see as I have selected the solution. So in this case, it will give me the list of a project, right? Whatever available within that solution. If you click on the project, only that project is going to be provided, right? In this case, I want to install into this project FastCore web application. Select the one, whichever version you want to install, that version you need to select and click on the install button. So once you click on the install button, it will show what are the DLL it is going to install. So preview changes. So click on the OK button. Once you click on the OK button, right, you can see this finished message we are getting. That means the package is installed. So once the package is installed, right, then you can see this packages folder is added within the dependency folder. So within this package folder, you can see newtonsoft.json and what is the version 13.0.3 is installed. Not only it installed the package into this folder, but also you will see one item group is added, and within that item group, right, that package is going to be installed, right? What is the name of the package? newtonsoft.json, and what is the version? It is 13.0.3. Now, unlike other, right, our .NET framework, so here you can easily remove and easily add the packages. So let me copy and let me remove. And once I remove the packages, immediately you can see that packages folder is also going to be deleted automatically. Right? The packages folder is going to be deleted automatically. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to make this as a 13.2 and I just save it. So once I save it, you can see the package is automatically going to be added. And what is the version? 13.0.2. Now let me make this as a 13.3 because 13.3 is the latest one. So and save it, right? So you can see it is going to automatically update the package. So you can, whatever changes you are doing here, that is going to be reflected automatically in the Visual Studio Solution Explorer, right? Now whenever I'm going to uninstall this package, right? This is currently 13.03, and what package is there? 13.03. That is fine. So why we are getting that error? Okay, let me remove this from here, right?
I
Let me
think we
save
need
this
to
one.
go to installed tab. Then we'll get.
No, right. So this is fine. So you have to do this. So you can also directly install the packages from your project file, and that package is going to be automatically added. Now, if you go to this install tab, this package is already installed. Once I uninstall here, then automatically it is going to install from this packages folder. Automatically, the project file is going to be updated. Let me show you. So I just click on the uninstall button, click on the OK button, uninstall finished, and uninstall finished, you can see project file is going to be updated, right? That package information is deleted, and the package information from the dependency is also deleted. So in this case, the point you have to remember is whenever you are going to add any package, that package is going to be added within the packages folder, within the which is you can find within the dependency folder, and the package information, right? What is the package name? What is the package version? That is going to be added within your project file. How you will update the project file? So simply you just need to right click on your project, and then you will see this edit project file. So this is nothing but your edit project file. Or if you double click on this project, right? If you double click here, then also it is going to open the project file. And using project file, we are providing some information like what is the target framework the project is pointing to, right? Whether nullable checking is enabled by the compiler or not. What is the advantages of using this one? This will allow you to reduce the null reference exception for your application. And what is implicitly using means you do not need to write the using statement each and everywhere, right? So it will use automatically the implicitly using, right? So whenever, but the thing is that if you are using some implicitly using means, first of all, that package need to be installed. If the package is not installed, it is not going to automatically add the using statement, right? Uh, for example, I'm going to create a class. I'm going to use some. What I can say file class, right? File class means that file package should be installed into your machine, right? If any third party TLL you want to use system.newton.json related classes, you want to convert the string to JSON or JSON to string. For that purpose, right, you need to JSON converter class you need. First of all, you need to install the JSON package from the NuGet. Then only once you use that package going to be automatically or implicitly added. Until and unless you are not adding the package, automatically it is not going to add. Clear, guys? Right? So this is
Yes, sir.
how you this is how you need to install, and this is how you need to uninstall, right? So the next important thing on or the last thing what we are going to discuss is the code whatever you see inside the main method, right? So you can see, let me close this one. Let me go to the main method, and this is the default code what you find inside your main method, right? So whenever you write any, you will got this code. Hello world. So this is the default code which you will find inside the main method. So what is this code? What is the role of each statement and what we need to understand? We need to understand what is the program class main method. So what is the role and responsibility of program class main method, right? So the point that you need to remember is, right, the main method is actually significantly changed from .NET 6, right? If you are working with the earlier version of applications like 3.1, 5, 2.2, then you will find there are two classes. One is the program class, another one is the startup class. For example, let me develop one application using the .NET Core 3.1, right? So if I am developing one application using .NET Core 3.1, let me develop that same empty application, ASP.NET Core empty, and right, but using .NET Core 3.1, right, then you will see that not only the main method of the program class is there, right, program class main method is there, right, but also the startup class is there. And within the startup class, you will find two methods, configure service and a configure. And this startup class is going to be called by the main method. It's main method calling the create host builder method, create host builder method using the startup class to host your application. So, but from .NET 6, you will not find this configure service method. You will not find this configure method. If you are having any question, what is this configure service method? What is this configure method? The point that you need to remember, whatever services required for your application, that you need to configure using this configure service method. Whatever middleware component is required for your application or the application request processing pipeline, that you need to configure using the configure method, right? And this startup class is going to be used by the main method, right? So that when the application start, it will configure all the required services, all the required middleware components into the application processing pipeline. Along with it is going to host the application, right? So all these things, whatever you have seen here, right? Configure method, configure service method, startup class, program class, this logic, this complicated or complex logic, which we initially or which we usually find in our earlier .NET framework version, right? Now simplified using a simple method. And what is that method? The main method. So whatever logic we have written there, everything they have simplified from .NET 6. So from .NET 6, you will find this piece of code by default. Later on, I will modify this class as we progress. But by default, these are the code which is provided by .NET Core Framework when you create the ASP.NET Core empty application. Now, right. So what is the use or what is the importance of a main method? The main method is the entry point of your .NET Core application. The main method of the program class is the entry point of your .NET Core application, where the main method will host the application, where it configure and register required services, configure middleware pipelines, right? So basically what it means, that it means the main method of the program class is the entry point of our .NET application. So entry point means what? Now it means if you work with console application, if you work with desktop application, right? Windows Form application, then you know there is a main method. What is the use of a main method? From the main method only the program execution is going to start. Similar way in .NET Core web application also main method is there, and from the main method only the program execution is going to start. Then what are the things we are going to do as part of the main method? As part of the main method, we are going to set the web host, right? Setting the web host means what web server is going to use, whether it is going to use IIS web server, whether it is going to use Custral web server, whether it is going to use an Nginx web server, whether it is going to use in-process hosting model, whether it is going to use out-of-process hosting model, everything, right, based on the default configuration, it will set the web host, right? Once it set the web host, right, then what it will do, it will configure the required services, right, which are required for our .NET web application. Currently, we do not configure any services, but think that if we want to make this application as a MVC application, then whatever services required for the MVC, that you need to configure. Once it configure the services, then it will configure the middleware component, right? Middleware component in the sense what? Now, while the request is coming, first I need to execute the authentication code. Then I need to execute the authorization code. Then I need to execute the encryption and the decryption logic, right? Then I need to execute the HMAC logic. Then I need to execute the routing logic, right? So those are nothing but middleware components that you need to register. And that is nothing but your request processing pipeline. So middleware component is equivalent to request processing pipeline. How the application is going to handle the request, right, in the pipeline, that is going to be configured using the middleware component, and that is you are going to do within the main method. So in this case, we have configured one component, middleware component, that is main mapkit, and this is the component which is going to handle the request whenever the request comes. We will discuss everything. And another thing is that once it sets the web server, once it hosts the application, once it configures the required services, once it hosts the request processing pipeline, then it will start the application. And for starting the application, it is using the app.run method. So once the application starts, then only your application is going to listen to the incoming HTTP request. Until and unless you are not calling this application, means you have set the web host, you have configured the services, you have configured the middleware components, right? But you have not started your application now. Until and unless your application is not running, then how it will receive the incoming request? For example, suppose you are using a SQL server, right? Until and unless your SQL server is not running, can you access the SQL server database? No, you can't access, right? For example, in my machine, right, you will see SQL server developer. This is in the running mode. I stop this running, right? The application is running. So once I stop the application, can I access the database? No, I can't access. If you trying to access, then it will give you that network connection error, something like this. So this is the server I'm trying to communicate. So it will take some time and then it will throw me the error that you can't connect to the server. The server is not available, not accessible. Some kind of error it will give me. Let's see what error it is going to give me. Still it is trying to connect, right? It will not immediately give you the error. It will trying to connect one time, two time, three time, and finally after trying multiple times, if it is unable to connect, then it will give me the error. Let's see what error we are getting. In the same way, right, until and unless your web application is not started, see, a network related or instance specific error. That means whenever you are getting this network related or instance specific error, means your server is not started. The server is not in the running mode. So what you need to do, you need to start the server. Once the server is started, then try once more, right? Once the server is started, try to connect, and this time it is connected. So similar way, until and unless you are not calling this run method, right, your application is not started. As long as your application is not started, it cannot receive the incoming HTTP request. Now let us proceed and understand what are the use of each method, right? Right. So in our application, you will find 4 pieces of code, right? 4 pieces of code means these are the code. First statement is this one, second statement is this one, third statement is this one, and this is the fourth statement. Now we need to understand what is the use of each of these statement, right? So this is the statement, right? This statement configure web host and the services. The first line of the code of the main method is used to create an instance of web application builder. The create builder method, right, what you are saying, is a static method, and this static method belongs to web application class that accept the command line arguments as input parameter. Method initializes a new instance of web application builder class with a pre-configured default. So basically what it means, now this create builder method, if you go to the definition, right, so it is going to create and initialize a new instance of which class? Web application builder class. So once it initializes the web application builder class, but with what? With the pre-configured defaults, right? So what it means? It means by default, whatever configuration is there for your application, by taking those default configurations, it will create the web application builder instance. So what are the default configuration it is going to do as part of creating the web application builder instance? It will set the web application web server. Means what? Now what web server it is going to use? Whether I need to use IIS, whether I need to use Castrel, whether I need to use Nginx. So what web server? What web server is configured by default? That is it is going to use. Then it will host the application, right? Only identifying the web server is not enough, right? See, currently in my machine, IIS is there. So this is nothing but my web server. Until and unless I am not hosting the application here, I cannot access that using IIS. We need to figure out what is the web server. Then we need to host our application inside this web server, right? That is what going to be done by this create builder method. It will set the web server. It will host the application, and once it hosts the application, it is going to configure some built-in services like logging services, like a configuration services, like dependency injection container, and also it is going to add some framework related services, right? So these are the things going to be done by this create builder method. So how it is, sets the web server and host the application, that is what we are going to discuss in our next session, right? Once we discuss what is in process hosting, what is out process hosting, how it is using the IIS server, how it is going to use the custom web server, any other web server, right? At what scenario it is going to use IIS, at what scenario it is going to custom web server. Is it possible to use both the web server to host our application? Yes, that is also possible. How? We will see practically, right? That is in the next session, right? And this logging, as we progress, definitely I'm going to show you how to use logging. And this configuration means if you want to configure any custom services, then you will use it. Dependency injection by default is provided. Any framework related services also, if you want, then you can, what I can say, you can set or you can configure using this builder, right? This builder is nothing but an instance of the web application builder. Now, if you go to this class, right, instead of using var, you can replace this var with the web application builder, right? Why? Because this create builder instance, it is going to return an instance of the web application builder, right? And then this web application builder instance provides some information, right? What information it is providing? It is providing the hosting environment, right? Whether you are running your application in a development environment or in a production environment, in a staging environment, whether you are using in-process hosting or out-of-process hosting, whether you are using custom server or IIS server, those information you can get using this iHost environment. iService collection means what? It is useful for adding user provided or framework services, right? Suppose you want to use so if anybody worked with it, what I can say, dependency injection, you can make the dependency object singleton, you can make the dependency object scoped, you can make the dependency object transient. All those things configuration you can do here. Also, any user provided service. Suppose we want to create a custom component, and I want that custom component to be added into the request processing pipeline. That is what you need to do here. Configuration manager means what? Now, see, if you see in earlier framework, we have the web config file. In the web config file, we store the connection string, and that connection string we access from our application. Similarly, in the .NET Core, we do not have that web config file, but we have many other configuration file. And from such configuration file, if we want to access the data, then we need to use this configuration manager service, right? For example, currently, if you see, there is a file called app launch setting.json. There is a file called appsetting.json. There is a file called appsettings.development.json. So if you want to store some data, right, inside this file, then how you will going to access those data? For that, for accessing those data, we need one service, and that service is automatically added by right to our application by this create builder this create builder method. Logging middleware means logging is one of the important factor while you are developing the application, and by default that logging service is automatically included, and you can start using the logging. As we progress in this course, then we will see what are the logging component, how we can use this logging, right? We will discuss, right? So when this create builder method is executed, it will create an instance of web application builder. As we progress in this course, we will see how we can configure different built-in services. So these are the things which are automatically provided. But apart from this, if you want to make that this web application behave like a MVC application, this web application behave like a web API application, this application behave like a Razor Pages application, right? Or if you want to configure any custom services, we'll see how we can do the same by using this builder instance, right? So basically the point that you need to remember is this create builder method host the web server, host the application, configure some built-in services, and return an instance of the web application builder. And using this builder instance, you can configure what I can say, some built-in services, some predefined services. For example, I want to add some middleware component, right? So you can say add MVC. So once I add this add MVC, then this application will behave like a MVC application, right? So this is what only possible because of this web builder instance. And these services you can configure. How you can access the services behavior? If you go to the definition, then you will see, right? See, this is the iServices. So it is providing this iServices, and using the services you can configure, right? This is useful for adding user provided or framework provided services, right? This is a framework provide services. We can also create our own service. We can also add that one service. How? That we will see practically, right? Suppose you want to access, right? Suppose you want to access at what environment this application is running. So builder dot, so environment dot, and you can say environment name. So whether it is the production environment, whether it is a development environment, or any environment that you can access using this builder instance. Why it is possible? How it is possible? Because it is providing that environment property here, right? I will host environment. So this is the use of this statement, right? It will set the web host, because until and unless our application is not hosted on any web server, how we can access them by using any HTTP protocol, right? We cannot access them using the browser until and unless it is not hosted on the web server. And who take the responsibility to host our application into the web server? This is create builder method. And this create builder method host the application and return an instance of web application builder. And using this web application builder instance, we can do many things. What are the things we can do? We can configure the services, we can configure the middleware component, right? All these things we will going to be do by using this web application builder instance. Any question from anyone related to this particular statement? Nice.
No.
Sir, here builder
Clear?
just we are calling builder build method just to execute the application or set the environment.
So what I explained, this is basically used to set the environment. Environment in the sense, see, if you are having one application and until and unless you are not hosting any web server, can you access that using the URL Google from Google? So
No.
currently you can say this is my application, and from the internet and from the browser you are able to access this application. That means
Right.
what? That this application definitely hosted somewhere using some web server. How you will check on which web server? And you just open this, right? Make a request, open this one, right? Then you will see, right? Just double click here, and you can see what server it is there? NETCore. They are using NETCore server where they have hosted this application so that you can access this. Similarly, in our class, whenever we run this application, right? Whenever we run this application, we are able to access the web page. Na? It is also like a URL. It is also like accessing some data. That means definitely this application is hosted somewhere, right? Who hosted this? This create builder method hosted this. Where it is hosted? If you want to see, just F12, just write down F12, make another request, open this local host and set what is the server. What server it is using? Microsoft IIS. So in this case, it is using IIS server, right? Now let me do one thing, right? Instead of IIS, I'm going to use first web core application profile. I'm going to discuss this thing in detail. Now run the application, right? Again, open the developer browser
In
tool by
that
pressing
case,
F12, right? Make another request, go to this side, and now what server it is currently using? Kestrel web server. How you see, sometimes it is using IIS, sometimes it is using Kestrel. How? Because of the configuration, how we are configuring, how we are executing our application. Based on that, it is going to do all these things, right? So,
yes.
so these things is possible because of this create web builder method. This builder method not only set the server but also host the application so that we are able to access the application. Clear?
Yes.
Guys, anyone having any more question related to this particular statement?
And what is the last one? Map app.map get. What it does?
I'm asking about question related to this line number 7, not related to other line. First of all, listen my question carefully. I have not explained what is all these things. I have only explained this particular statement. Any question related to this statement, ask. Guys, anybody having any question? Because this is the important things, right? So this line number, the first statement of the main method is completed. So these are the things that is main method. So the second step, this is nothing but the step 1 where you are creating the web host and the services. The step 2 is configuring the middleware component, right? So step 2 is configuring the middleware component, and to configure the middleware component, what we need to do, we need to call the build method of on the builder object, right? If you go to the definition, then what instance it is going to do, it is creating an instance and it is returning a web application. So what is this method is going to do? This method is going to where of the host configuration, right? Where of the host configuration means now once the hosting is done, right, then it is going to create see, once we have created the hosting environment, once we have set the server, which server is going to host our application, we need to build the project, right? And this build method is going to do the same thing. Once it make the things are ready, right? The server is ready, the application is hosted, right? Then we need to configure the middleware component. So middleware component means the routing component you can also consider, right? So see, if you are working with the ASP.NET MVC or ASP.NET WebAPI, there is something called controller action method. What are the use of controller action method? Whenever we send the HTTP request, then it is the controller action method who is going to handle that request. Yes or no? If you do not have any controller or if you do not have any action method, then what the HTTP request is going to serve? Is it going to serve anything? Guys? No, it will not serve anything. That means we need to provide some processing logic. We need to provide some executable code, right? So that when the request comes, that code is going to be executed and our application is going to solve. And for that purpose, we need this web application build, web application instance. How we will get the web application instance? By calling the build method, it will return an instance of a web application, and using that web application instance, we can configure the middleware components, right? So for example, I want to use routing middleware component. So you can use routing app dot use routing. So this is one component app dot use routing. Similarly, I want to use developer exception page middleware component, right? App dot use developer exception page middleware component. So these are one middleware component, and these components are going to be executed in the same sequence as they registered into our application. We'll discuss what are middleware component, what is the execution order, right? How to create custom middleware component, everything we are going to discuss. But for now, these are nothing but your request processing pipeline. That means whenever the request comes, these components are going to be executed one by one. First this component, then this component, and then this component is going to be executed. So currently we do not, I don't want to use this component. Currently we are going with the default component. And in this case, this map get, right, as part of this build method, right? So what exactly it is doing? It is creating the request processing pipeline. So here we are creating the hosting environment, registering the services. Here we are creating the request processing pipeline, which is going to handle the incoming request, right? And in this case, we have registered only one component, and that component we have registered using the map get method. That what exactly this map get means? It is a middleware component, it is a endpoint component which is going to handle the incoming request. Then what incoming request it will handle? We are having different URL. Then which URL it is going to handle? It is only going to handle the root URL, right? Or the base URL. That means if the URL is end with the what I can say, this symbol exactly, what exactly, I just forgot.
Forward
Forward
slash.
slash, forward slash, right? Yes.
Yes.
So if
Backward
the
slash.
URL backward slash, so whatever it may be, right? So whenever you access the application using a GET request, and if that URL contain only this backward slash, then only this request delegate or this method or whatever logic you have written, that is going to be executed. If the request is not a GET request, if the URL only not contain this slash, after this slash you have written something else, then not this action or this routing component or this endpoint component or this middleware component, it's not going to handle that request, right? So that means what? So you have to remember, this is nothing but your create the application or the create the host or create the server. This is going to build the application, or I mean build the server, and this is going to routing. I mean what I can say, setting the routing, setting the middleware component, right? And this is going to start the application. Start the application. Now what you need to understand, you need to understand now, without this step, you cannot come to step 2. First of all, you need a server and you need to host the application. Once you host the application, then only you can create the web application builder object. Until and unless you are not creating the web application builder object, you cannot set the middleware component. Until and unless you are not setting the middleware component or the routing component, you cannot handle the incoming request, right? And until and once you have the hosting environment, once you host the application, once you set the middleware component, definitely you need to start the application. Until and unless this application is not started by this call, right, this statement is never going to be executed. And this should be the last one, and it should be present at the end of this main method, right? So what is this map get method is going to do? It is going to request. It is going to handle the incoming HTTP GET request only, which is end with this backward slash. And once the request comes, then whatever the logic we have written using this delegate, that logic is going to be executed, and whatever output we have written here, that output will be written into the output stream, and that output you can see in the browser, right? So now let me run the application, right? So once you run the application, then you will see this output. And to make sure that whether it is a get request or post request or put request, anything else, just click once more, come to here, and you can see this is a get request method. And this URL is end with forward slash. Now let's do something else. I just type something. So once I type something, even though it is a GET request, but the URL is not the base URL or the root URL, right? After the URL, we have to type something. That means, in this case, do you think that this method is going to handle that request, guys? Is the URL end with this forward slash? Is the URL is the base URL?
No.
No. So if the URL is not the base URL, if you are adding something else, now just try to make the enter button. See what happened? So we are getting this 100, right? Now this is the URL. So what status code we get? We get 404 resource not found. And you can see this is the request URL. The status code is this one, right? Server is custom web server. Right? This information you will get. So that means if the request is get, right, then only if the URL is the base URL, then only this middleware component or this endpoint, what we configure, that is going to handle the request. So how to handle the post request, put request, we will discuss as we progress in this course. I will make you sure how to use get, post, patch, put, delete, every request I'm going to show you practically. But for now, you just need to remember, understand this default code. What is the use of this statement, what is this map get method, and what is this round map. Clear? Anybody having any question? They can ask me now.
Can we add here multiple map get method, right? After line number 40.
See, that is what I'm going to discuss. So I will add multiple map get method. But the thing is that one map get method is going to execute, right? Not all, right? This map get method will handle the request. So hello world too, right? So I'm just writing this one. Now run the application and see how many requests is going to be executed. right? Unhandled exception, ambiguous matching endpoint, right? So you are having multiple endpoint which is having the same. So how you will handle this scenario? That's what we are going to discuss, right? Suppose I'm providing here 100, right? So now just close this one and run the application. See, we are getting this, and I'm using this one. See, this is so you can have clear.
Yes.
Right. Well, I will discuss how to see in this case this map get method executed either this one or that one. But we need all scenario where we need to use request delegate. That means we are having multiple routing point. One middleware component will execute some part and it will transfer the request to the next middleware component. The next middleware component will transfer to the next middleware component. So all these things we are going to discuss one by one. Right? Clear, guys?
Yes.
Any question from anyone?
Hi, sir. Yeah, that line number 8, that build create builder and asks. So what is the role of arguments?
Argument means if you want to pass any arguments, right, command line values to your application, and then you can use. Actually, there is no in real time we never use, right? Even though if you see the main method, right, in the main method of your application, console application, have you ever used that arg parameter?
Yeah, no, yeah. In this core
You
application, any specific use or it
right.
is
See, for example, here I'm using hello. Right. I just want to make sure whenever the application runs, some configuration it should receive. Right. Based on the configuration, we want to do something in the main method. Right. Suppose I'm passing here hello. Right. You can see I'm passing here hello, and also here I'm passing wall. So you can see this is fast core web application. This is one launch profile, and this is another launch profile. Now from your console application, right? Go to console application, and you want to check what this arg content, right? So what I'm doing, I'm creating a string variable string name equals to arg of 0, right? So you can pass multiples and arg equals to 0. Now what I can do is I'm just writing some code. Hello world. I'm putting that name. Right. So suppose some configuration value you want to pass while you are launching your application. Then at that time you can use this one. Right. Now run the application. See, we are getting that hello, right? Suppose you want to configure, suppose you want to pass the connection string, right, from the command line interface. Then you can pass that connection string and you can paste the connection string here, and you can use that connection string while throughout the application like this. Any configuration, any command line value you want to pass, that you can pass and that you can accept by using this args parameter. But in real time, we rarely use this argument parameter. Clear?
yes.
I sir.
Yeah.
Is it possible to create